Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to today's AFK journey video. So in the video yesterday, I was talking about the EX weapon guide, providing a basic tips and tricks, weapon prioritization, as well as +5, +10 and +15 preference, right? So I've seen some comments talking about hero focus, asking for a guide on it, and I figured initially I didn't want to do it because for myself as a spender as well as a free-to-play player in a less competitive environment, I think for the tidal essence part, it's always in an abundance. Like, I basically don't face a shortage, so whenever I get to the hero focus of a unit, I'll just upgrade it. It costs 60 tidal essence, so that's that. But then I could also see a point and a scenario where maybe you are in a more competitive server and you don't want to shift server because your friends are there, so your tidal essence income is a lot lower and you want to sort of maximize your efficiency. So certain skills which you don't use a lot, or certain skills which are less impactful, you can skip them and then instead save your tidal essence for more impactful skills or the EX weapon of the unit more specifically. So in today's video, I'm going to run through all the units and then talk about my thoughts about the hero focus ability, whether or not you should dump your resources directly into the unit, and then you guys can decide whether or not you guys want to spend your tidal essence from there. So today's video will be more free to play by nature, assuming that you have a limited resource. So let's say if you have a limited resources and you need to choose between hero focus on one unit over another one, or the EX weapon over the hero focus skill, then what do you do with it? So that's the direction. So I'll start with going through the units in the collection page, namely the units which I don't recommend people to upgrade, so hence their hero focus skill should be a non-factor, right? You probably shouldn't consider their hero focus skill. So first up we have Kafra. So Kafra, I don't think I need to mention too much. Toilet Bowl, okay, Walker, Faye, Morale, Valen, Lumon, as well as Atalanta. So these are what I'll usually call the toilet bowl unit, where I don't think you should use them. I also don't see a lot of people using them. To a certain extent, I think Lucius could be considered a toilet bowl unit because, yeah, this tank is pretty decent, but so far from what I observe, right, I don't see a lot of people using Lucius. I think it's also because you actually keep your wish list for Merrily and Korean for the light bearer side, so Lucius kind of get squeezed out. So for these units where you don't bother investing in them, where if you do get their shots, it's usually from the random A level soul stones and you're not going to use them a lot in the first place, then don't bother upgrading their hero focus, right? If you don't use a unit, upgrading the resources, using upgrading resources to power them up is basically wasting them. So use it on units which you can use in very niche situations. Use it on units which you need to push through content such as Legend Trial or even Trial of Abyss moving forward, and don't waste it on units where you don't use at all. So these are the tolerable units. To a certain extent, I think Satrana is also skippable. Although Satrana's EX weapon does make her slightly viable for PvP contents and you can consider, but in most cases, I think for free-to-play player, Satrana is a very skippable unit. So I don't recommend free-to-play player to go for her. So therefore, I think her hero focus is also highly skippable. So that's for the totally skip unit. I won't even bother talking about them because if you're going to skip them, why bother, right? So next one, let's talk about the Celestial / Hippogene units. So I'll start with Scalitas first. If you take a look at her hero focus skill, right, increases execution by 6, right, at level 3 for each blessing she sends while in the air. So execution is basically increase in damage when the enemy's HP is below 50%. So over here, as you guys can see. So to a certain extent, this complements really well with her EX weapon skill, which is the insta-kill ability. However, for Scalita as a unit at Legendary Plus, personally, I'll say that she's more so in the support utility compartment because her carry potential is not there yet. So if you're somebody who is upgrading Scalita and you got her to Legendary Plus, you want to upgrade her hero focus, I'll say you can hold on it because her EX weapon is actually more impactful. In fact, Scalita's true power only unlock if you get her EX weapon to EX10, which is the level 3 skill, right? You want that insta killing, and then when you combine that with this increase in execution before she lands on the ground, it will make her, I'll say, like overall power level elevated by a lot. But just the hero focus alone is not that impactful. So if you do have a choice to choose between upgrading her hero focus or another unit's hero focus who is more important, I'll say you can skip on Scalita first. But after you get the EX weapon up, then the hero focus must also follow so that you can maximize her ability. So next one we'll go to Dwonel. So Dwonel's case, I'll say, is very similar to Scalita in a sense. their EX weapon skill is quite the powerful skill, and on top of that, these units are more late game centric by nature. So if you do upgrade them to Legendary Plus, you don't actually use them a lot yet, right? Until you actually unlock their EX weapon and feel them in arena, or even like in all the battle drills where you need damage and stuff. So personally, I think their hero focus is really good if you combine it with their EX weapon skill. So if you have a choice to choose between their EX weapon or their hero focus, I would say save for EX weapon first and then come back to hero focus once you get their EX weapon up. So this is more so for Donnell and Skalita. They are more late game by nature. So even if you do get them to Legendary Plus, I also don't think you'll use them a lot unless they are the strongest units. Then you can consider to upgrade them, right? You use them a lot and you use them for different contents, then yes. But these units, they are very strong in very specific contents, but they are not used a lot in all the content. So yeah, just I'll say like lower in priority. Next one, Barrel. So Barrel is very PvP centric. If you're somebody who doesn't really play PvP a lot, I don't recommend the hero focus upgrade immediately. This skill is very powerful, by the way. Reduces damage dealt by an isolated enemy by 10% and increases their damage taken by 5%. So in like, it's not just against PvP, but in PvE stages where you have enemies isolated, this debuff is very helpful. But for Barrel's case, most of the time, if you do invest your resources into him, he's an arena unit by nature. He's very powerful in arena. But you using him in the normal story mode, I think could be quite hit or miss depending on what stages you are playing on, whether or not your tiers are higher. But generally, he's not a PvP unit. I mean PvE unit. So his EX weapon is, I'll say, the more sick one. I'll say the same issue as Donnell and Skalita. So they are more late game centric by nature. So even if you do get their hero focus and you kind of want to use them, you don't use them a lot. So to sort of get more efficiency out of your Tidal Essence investment, I'll say invest on units which you could start using once you get them to Legend Plus. So I'll talk about those units later, but for this Celestial / Shippuden unit, I'll say not a rush. In fact, all three of their EX weapon are really good, so you kind of want to save up, at least get their EX weapon to EX5, although for Skalita's case, you need EX weapon 10 to see her full potential. So that's for the three of them. However, for Reyna's case, right, personally, Reyna is a unit where if you do upgrade him to Legendary Plus and you get this skill, right, just upgrade it, because this skill increases the target's damage by 7% when you cast it on an ally and reduces the attack by 7% when you cast it on an enemy, effectively doing like a double buff debuff thing, which is very useful in increasing your damage as well as decreasing the damage that your team take, because you reduce the boss's damage. So for Reyna's case, once you get the hero focus, upgrade it, and because you'll be using Reyna as soon as you get hero focus, right? Because this is actually a decent buff to get you more damage. And then the biggest part is obviously the EX weapon, where if you do get him to Mythic Plus, you get the increase in damage by 25%. That's more than enough. You don't even need the EX10 for Reyna to be used to do what he needs to do. So the rest of the upgrade will be based on your min-maxing. So for Reyna's case, if you get the hero focus, you can use it, right? Then you can start using the dynamic sword for the boss and then your carry, and then from there you can do more damage. So that's for Reyna's case, very high priority. Cassidy's case, Cassidy is a pretty niche unit. I would say that not a very free-to-play friendly unit in a sense, because for free-to-play units or free-to-play players, you kind of want to invest in units which are, I'll say, more suitable for your usage in general content, rather than Cassidy, who is an amazing unit for a very specific content. So her EX weapon is actually really powerful. So if you do have resources to get her up, it's actually a very high priority, because increase in haste, whenever I see this increase in haste ability for any unit, it's an immediate upgrade, because the unit will be good enough to do something with that haste buff alone, because you can combo it with Star Shard spell, which I mentioned multiple times, for you to use your skills faster and then jam in more damage with Star Shard spell. So for Cassidy specifically, if you do intend to upgrade her, then her hero focus is quite a good skill to upgrade. So as you go down the road, right, whenever you guys see increase in haste for a unit, that's an immediate upgrade, because increase in haste is just so good that if you're able to use it, you basically want it on your unit, because you get like better damage, you get better skills usage, which allows you to boost your damage for your Star Shard spell, and then you get like just in general faster usage of whatever the unit wants to do. So that is a very powerful hero focus, and when you see it, just upgrade it, unless you don't use the unit at all. So for Cassidy's case, not so free-to-play friendly as a unit, but if you do see a hero focus, it's a very high priority upgrade. Next one, we have Vala. For Vala's case, if you're somebody who's free-to-play and you did get her up, this skill is quite good, right? Vala's ability to just snipe off target, even pre-EX weapon, is already very invaluable, because her kit basically shines in a form on the offense of arena, right? On defense, I think by now you guys will realize that Vala is not that good. So if you're able to target a unit, for example, like the more frail backline, then this hero focus is actually pretty good, because as long as you're able to quickly snipe off weak targets, you're gonna get the additional attack percentage, which will allow her to steamroll faster. So if you do use Vala actively for different contents and you use her for arena, hero focus is also the topmost priority. In fact, it's more important. I'll say like the EX weapon is important, but if you ask me, the priority will be this one and then the EX weapon for her. So because her skill is like, okay, we do something and then if the enemy is defeated, then we get extra buffs, right? So since you're able to get it at hero focus, you should upgrade this first and then upgrade the night maneuver skill. Okay, so this is the Vala priority for the hero focus. Next one, for Rowan's case, same thing, haste. If you, like I mentioned earlier, if you get haste for Rowan as a support, having more haste is actually just a lot better. Allows you to get your potions out faster, use your ultimate faster, and do whatever Rowan wants to do faster in general. So yeah, haste, when you see it, just upgrade it. Next one, Atalanta skip. Tamaja's case, okay, I think for Tamaja, I always classify Tamaja as a more pay-to-win unit, or rather, like not as an important unit for free-to-play players, because Tamaja on paper is very, very powerful, but in actual fact, in a late game, she's only actually used in one boss right now. There are certain niches where you can actually run her outside of just the boss fight, but in general, you don't use her a lot. So her usage is not very high, and her skill is actually quite late game centric in a sense. She needs to cast her ultimate a few times, right? So yeah, she does get this 4% boost the first time she casts her Knight's Heart. And if you do have her up because you're preparing for Necro Dragon, then I think this hero focus is actually more important than her EX weapon, because you're using her for Necro Dragon. So having the bonus attack is definitely more helpful than having the EX weapon up, because this one does provide stats and increases her survivability. But in the Dream Realm side of things, if you're using her for that purpose, then doing more damage is more important. So that's why I say hero focus over EX weapon in terms of priority. But if you compare her hero focus to other units who are more important, I'll say if you have more important units to upgrade, you can hold on to Tamaja's one first. But if you have her and you don't have other units to upgrade, then you should just increase this skill, because increase in attack basically gives her more damage for Dream Realm bosses, which is what you want, right, for Dream Realm. So that's why pretty okay hero focus. If you do get her and you're using her to get more damage for Dream Realm, then yeah, just upgrade it when you have the time or resources. Next one, we have Brutus. Okay, Brutus case, personally I think his hero focus is a skip, because I think for most free-to-play players that are using Brutus, I already encourage people not to invest too much in the EX weapon. His biggest gimmick is just surviving for 5 seconds, so that you basically can buy time for your backline. And yeah, even though you get increased life drain over here, if you don't have Brutus at a very high tier, you're not gonna invest him at a super high tier like Supreme Plus or even Paragon eventually. The life drain numbers or the life steal number that he's getting is not that impactful anyway. So this unit don't see a lot of use in the late game, and you need quite a lot of investment for his life drain to even see use. So I would say it's quite skippable, right? Because you just need to survive 5 seconds. Whether or not he can recover with all the heals from your unit, and whether or not you buy enough time for your backline, that's all the subsequent story, right? The life drain is not going to matter too much anyway, so very, very skippable. For the EX weapon, same thing. I think if you do decide to invest in him, which is probably not a focus for the free-to-play players, because Brutus is not a free-to-play friendly unit. So that's why I think both the hero focus as well as the EX weapon is skippable if you're just using him as an intermediary before maybe like TORREN or your granny is up for future usage. So that's for Brutus. I know there are some free-to-play players who went for him and then maybe probably get him to Legendary Plus, and then like, should I continue investing? I'll say no. Just keep him as at where it is, because hero focus doesn't provide you with stats, and then the life drain is not so impactful to get anything back in the first place. Next one, we have Lumon, so skip. not going to talk about it. Smokey MK, yes, Smokey MK's attack increase is really important because this 3 or more non-summon allies condition is very easy to fulfill, especially for Dream Realm, and most of the time Smokey MK is heavily used, right, for your multiple contents. So increase in attack basically increases their total heal number, which makes them more effective. In fact, let's say if you're running Brutus with Smokey MK, like this increase in hero focus is actually more beneficial in keeping your Brutus alive, because he's gonna heal more than Brutus himself lies still back in terms of his damage dealt. So pretty high priority, because this unit is very versatile and you're using him a lot. So additional heal for additional sustain for you to live longer is definitely greatly appreciated. Then for the EX weapon side, I mentioned yesterday that for Smokey MK, high priority to get the EX weapon, but I think EX5 is more than sufficient if you're somebody with limited resources. So that's for Smokey MK. For Rise case, okay, Rise case is that this critical damage boost is actually a scaling stat, because critical damage is basically increase in your crit damage itself, right? But the thing is, this critical damage actually scales with more tiers, because with more tiers you get more damage, right? With more damage you get higher crit numbers, and then the crit damage boost will further increase that number itself. And Rise is a pretty decent unit, but Rise is also one of those units where I don't think it's a very free-to-play friendly unit. You have other units which you will use more and it's more free-to-play friendly. So he's hero focus. If you do get it, good for you. But then again, if you have other units to upgrade, he won't be the highest priority, in fact. So that's for Rise case. Next one, we have SHAKI. Okay, so for SHAKI's case, right? I'll say SHAKI's case, his EX weapon is more important than the hero focus. The hero focus is a good buff to allow him to survive longer, right? To make sure that he stays long enough to do what he wants. But you really need him to transform into the wolf form ASAP. So you guys can see over here, if you guys can actually let him transform faster and allow him to keep his ultimate form longer with the EX5 skill, then you want to actually save up for this one. Right, if you can see yourself getting him to Mythic Plus, right, before anything else, then yeah. Because for SHAKI's case, right, this unit is quite versatile in both Arena as well as Dream Realm. Like there's teams for them, and you can use him in specific situations. And this damage reduction is quite important. Don't get me wrong. But what he really wants to do is to just get to his wolf form for all the good buffs and stuff, and this is just an additional buff for him. So if you ask me for priority, I'll say it's not that high. The EX weapon is higher, okay? But if you have additional resources, yeah, SHAKI's hero focus is really good for what he wants to do. So that's for SHAKI's case. Heaven's case, similar to Smokey, right? So these units rely on their attack stats for more heals. So if you're already running these healers on your team, because they're the two best healers, right? She's more defensive by nature. So if you are able to find a lot of usage for them, whenever you upgrade them to unlock their hero focus skill, just upgrade their hero focus immediately, because immediate upgrade to their hero focus basically boosts their whole kit as a whole, because all these numbers are affected by her attack. So if you increase her attack over here, it basically increases the ability as a whole. So even at the legendary plush, they can be used already. So very topmost priority for Heaven's case as well as Smokey's case mentioned earlier. So for Iron's case, okay, let's talk about Iron. Okay, Iron is this unit where I mentioned multiple times is the 0 to hero type of unit. So for Iron's case, this increase in his range defense will actually show a lot towards the later part of the game. But I'll say Iron is more like a unit where if you don't get the EX weapon, he just don't see a lot of use, or he's simply just not as good. So obviously the priority is to at least get his EX weapon first. If you can, upgrade to EX10 and then talk about the hero focus. This range defense buff is actually very neat because it's very good against the Mauler rangers, namely OD. So Iron also has the ability to dodge over here. So he already has his own way to survive. Like this is just additional defenses to keep him alive longer. So more, I'll say late game centric, more PvP centric by nature. So if you're somebody who's free to play, I'll say PvP is probably not your highest priority. So you can actually save your resources by not putting into hero focus. Put it into this hero focus when you get the EX weapon up and you're planning to use Iron for your different contents. So that's for Iron's case. DANI's case, Okay, if you are using DANI as your main tank, then yes, it's a very high priority because she's gonna be your main tank, right? Increase in vitality basically makes her stand on the front line for longer. And if you're using her as a main tank, then you're using her at Legendary Plus anyway. So depending on whether or not you are already actively using her, I'll say the priority for hero focus will be different for different players. So if you're using her as a main, I think this is very important. If you are using her or preparing her as a tech for future use, then you can just save up for the more important units. That's for Granny, right? In fact, I think her EX5 recovery is way more than the vitality boost, although for this vitality boost is also you have to factor in like all the heals coming up from the other healers, right? So usually if you use DANI, you use her with Damien or use her with Heron. So vitality basically makes Granny a lot tankier, by the way, but that is on the point where you are already using her actively. So yeah, just the priority is dependent on your usage. So if you don't use a lot, you can skip it for now, at least in the early to mid stage, or rather at least within the first 1 or 2 months of the game. Next one, Brian. Yeah, haste, very good. If you're using Brian, you get the haste. You're using him for different contents already, just upgrade it, because like I mentioned, haste is just god, so just upgrade it as fast as possible. For Florbell's case, okay, yesterday I didn't talk about Florbell in the EX weapon because I think she needs more testing to see the priority, but now I can say it. I think her EX weapon is very important if you do want to abuse her summoning synergy with other units. But if not, if you're using her as a standalone unit, this skill is also really powerful. So I'll say this is somewhere in the more PvE centric tier for Florbell. Florbell is actually really good. So her video will be releasing later on, so you guys can stay tuned for that. Then for the hero focus side, yeah, actually hero focus side, the maximum attack boost is very easy to achieve because when at least 2 of her summons are on the battlefield, like at the start she really summons Spiny, right? Then afterwards she immediately summons Swifty, so that's already maximum attack boost. So for Florbell's case, yeah, I'll say her hero focus is quite high priority because 26% attack boost is no joke, right? It boosts the ability of the shooter. It also boosts the ability of the units that she summoned from the pounding blow itself. So overall, a massive buff for Florbell. Pretty good if you do intend to use her. Next one, we have TORREN. Okay, TORREN skill is a must, I'll say. Yeah, TORREN skill is a must because TORREN is one of the best tanks which people use a lot. So that's why just now I mentioned for Granny's case, it depends on whether or not you are already using Granny. So chances are if you're using Granny, it probably means that your TORREN luck is very bad and you are putting TORREN on hold. But if you're already using TORREN, then TORREN's EX weapon skill is a no-brainer because his energy recovery, yeah, even though he's a tank, right, and you think that yeah, energy recovery is no joke, but TORREN has a pretty powerful ultimate. Is Soul Retaliation, where you take all the damage that people do at you and then you kill them with all the damage that they do to you. Pretty insane. So this is definitely a top priority if you can upgrade. So for TORREN's case, I think I don't need to say too much. Carolina, I personally think that Carolina is a unit that only shines after EX weapon. So you can get a hero focus, but chances are you won't be using her a lot. So that's my thought about Carolina. So for units which I don't use a lot, and if I'm a free-to-play player, then I'll put their hero focus on hold first. I mentioned multiple times, so that's my thought for Carolina. More, I'll say, late game centric, so more resource heavy. So if you get her to Legend Plus, you won't use her a lot anyway. Then you kind of want to save up and then, you know, get her EX weapon up, and then you put resources in the hero focus, then you start using her. The next one, we have Igor. Okay, Igor is, I'll say, the similar situation as DANI. If you're already using Igor, then this upgrade makes sense because it makes what he wants to do more annoying. But for Igor's case, subjective. Like, I think Igor's ability scales with stats, right? So this unit requires quite a bit of investment. Not sure whether or not Igor is the best investment for free-to-play players, but if you are using him, this skill is quite annoying. It makes him even more annoying, right? Him being able to life drain basically affects everything, by the way. So if you take a look at life drain over here, right? Life drain restores HP equal to 1% of the actual damage dealt. So Igor, other than normal attack, also has the ultimate, which is an AoE ability. The Tombstone also deals damage, and he has the ability to recover HP on his own. So increase in life drain from his skill, make sure that this unit survives longer and do what he wants as a semi-tank or just a Vala counter in general, right? So if you're already invested in Igor and you get the hero focus as a free-to-play player, then just upgrade it. It makes him better as a unit. Cecilia, I don't know. Like for Sylas case, I think he's probably the most invested unit for most people. So yeah, like I mentioned, if the unit is your most invested and you use the unit a lot, the moment you upgrade the hero focus, just upgrade it, right? You will just see like a steady burst in power level for the unit. But the thing about Sylas from my perspective is I don't use her. I also don't encourage people to use her. So since I don't use her, if I do get her to legendary plus by luck, then I might skip her focus because I don't use her at all. So that's the rationale for Sylas. But if you do have her and you are using her actively, then just upgrade it. Right? Whatever unit that you use a lot, or whatever unit that you are using a lot, the hero focus skill is invaluable. So that's for Sylas case. Skip. Yeah, merely insta upgrade. This crit damage boost is like, I'll say like a spike for her even before the EX weapon. Because her kit actually has inbuilt ability to do more damage already because of the increase in attack speed. So this means that this unit can crit more easily, right? So if yeah, this unit can crit more easily because you got this increased attack speed buff. So this means that being able to crit more easily, and this unit having a high crit percentage on its own, as you guys can see, right? So this crit over here, 145 is actually pretty high. So this unit crits really easily. So the increase in crit damage basically effectively boosts the damage output for Merrily, and she's gonna be a highly used unit anyway. So this hero focus is a definite must upgrade even before the EX weapon. So if you get to EX weapon, upgrade both immediately. Lucius case, yeah, same as Granny, right? So if you're using Lucius and you are really fielding him a lot, then invest in him. But if not, then just skip him. Okay. Corin's case, same thing. Haze, you see Haze, you upgrade. Skip. OD, I think no question asked, right? Like, if you're already upgrading OD, then just upgrade him. Like, this unit is one of the most free-to-play friendly unit. In fact, I use him in my free-to-play account run, where I'm using him as a main carry and he's just doing what he needs to do. So increase in attack speed basically increases his rate of killing the enemy to proc the cycling of the ultimate. So yeah, free-to-play players, if you get it there, good for you, right? Then if you combine it with the insta-kill, once you get him to mythic pass, you guys will see how this unit accelerate your progression. Seth. Seth is a PvP centric character. Definitely not, I'll say, like free-to-play friendly from that perspective, but I can see some free-to-play player investing in him. And if you do get him up, right, this unit actually shines much better with more stats. So I don't think you'll be using him a lot in the PvE side of things. But in PvP, this unit is quite sick, and this 20% buff is no joke because he's a unit that wants to steamroll in terms of his skills, right? I'm not going to talk too much, but this unit is a unit that steamroll with like more stats and faster acceleration of what he wants to do. So increase in attack helps with that. And I'll say if you are using him actively in arena, and if he's like one of your strongest carry in your pool as a free-to-play player, then yes. If not, skippable as well, because more, I'll say like more PvP focus, so not the best for free-to-play players. Kruger's case, yes, range defense basically makes Kruger tankier, and you can allow him to survive longer in certain bosses where they do range damage. So Kruger being able to survive longer means that he can apply more ultimates to do more damage. He can act as a body for your backlines to survive longer. So yeah, this is quite a high priority, and because Kruger uses him a lot, so it's definitely going to be worthy. Satrana, skip. Coco, yeah, Haze, upgrade, very powerful. Anthendra, subjective. Okay, Anthendra is, I'll say, like a very subjective unit. Like, there are people that put a lot of resources into her, and there are people like me who don't bother that much, right? Because I think for Satrana's case, her second skill is like what makes me really use her in the first place. Like, this skill is not reliant on her own stats. It's reliant on the guarded's allies max HP. So if I'm using her as a secondary tank and I'm using like TORREN, Granny as my main tank with a very high ascension level, this skill naturally becomes better with time, with stats. And then when you come into that, right, that shield also applies to her. So it's already giving her bonus HP. And if you're using, like, if you're really limited in resource and you are not using Anthendra a lot, then this hero focus is definitely not the highest priority. But if you are fielding her in the team, this additional HP actually allows her to survive for a little longer and then do what she needs to do, which is buy more time for you. But then again, like I mentioned, for myself, I don't invest in her, so I won't recommend free-to-play players to put their resources into the hero focus, because if I don't invest in her, I don't recommend people to invest in her. Simple as that. So that's that. But if you're using her as a main tank, then this skill is going to greatly boost her survivability, or this skill is going to keep her alive longer to sort of draw more attention away from your backlines, and then this will become a high priority in that kind of situation. Arden's case, yeah, okay, Arden's case is very similar to Seth, as well as like it's a combination of both Seth and Iroh, in the sense they're more late game centric, they're more arena centric, so their EX weapon is more important than the hero focus, and usually you only actually use them in all these game modes if you do get their EX weapon up, because their synergy comes in a late game. So hero focus, it's probably after the EX weapon, and if you have better units to upgrade, then you can skip on this hero focus first, because this unit only comes into being, or comes into greater efficiency with the EX weapon level 5 anyway. So that's for Arden's case. Leica's case, if you're using Leica for early game content push, then this skill is good. But Leica as a unit falls off a lot in the late game, so if you're a free-to-play player that doesn't invest in Leica, this is a skip for you. Damien's case. Damien is basically similar to Iron and Arden in a sense. The EX weapon is way more OP, and you do get the EX weapon up first. If you can get the EX weapon up first, then you should upgrade the EX weapon, then focus to the hero focus itself. Kafra skip. Parisa. Okay, Parisa, actually no, Parisa is actually also a good skip, to be really honest. Like, I won't recommend my free-to-play friends to go for Parisa in the first place. So I'll say Parisa is a skip, right? If you do get her EX weapon up, I won't even put her in my wish list, right? So she won't get to Legendary Plus anytime soon. So skip. Nero for free to play. I think Nero for free to play is a skip as well. Like, I don't think this unit is that good if you don't have a lot of investment in him. And at the same time, he's also not a unit which, if I think of a free-to-play player's perspective, I'll invest in. So I will also skip the hero focus, right? Or rather, it won't be of the highest priority for me. Sylvena's case, okay, Sylvena has a specific niche, right, which is arena, and I actually use Sylvena in my free-to-play account a lot, and this increase in crit is actually massive because it's all the way up to 40, right? So if you take a look at her crit stats, right, you increase her crit to 40, right, 40% more crit. Right, every point above the target's crit resist increases the unit's crit rate by 1%. So every unit will have a crit resist over here. So let's say if Sylvena is hitting another Sylvena with this kind of stats, her crit rate is 40%, because the crit resist of the opponent Sylvena is 105. But if you get this hero focus up, it's 80% crit rate. You double the crit rate effectively, right? So this number is quite big, and it actually increases her damage output a lot before the EX weapon. Like, the EX weapon increases her survivability, which allows her to better achieve what she wants to do. I'm so sorry, right? Which is to snipe the target before they actually snipe her off. But even before the EX weapon comes, right, this hero focus is actually a good boost for her. So I'll say Sylvena, good priority to upgrade. And this is effectively, I'll say, like doubling the damage increase, because you guys can see there's a double increase in crit rate in terms of the stats compartment alone. So this is very, very good for Sylvena specifically. Sylas skip. Viperion haste. If you're using Viperion and you get this part, just use it. Very, very good. Okay, so I guess, so sorry about the sudden phlegm coming up. So yeah, that's pretty much it, right? Like, that's the hero focus opinions. So just a concluding statement, I think for free-to-play players with limited resources, when you see a unit in terms of, like, you know, the upgrading compartment, the first thing that should always come into you is that, am I using the unit a lot? Or will I be using the unit a lot? And whether or not I can get the unit up to the specific level where I'll start using the unit a lot. Then you decide whether or not you want to put your resources into them. So that's how I'll process my resource usage as a free-to-play player. So hopefully this hero focus guide is helpful for those free-to-play players out there seeking for more clarity in terms of their tidal essence usage. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys!